So Mike is in with us. Last week we kind of did a little rundown on family safety here because we had that what ended up being a fatal fire in Linden.
So sad, yeah, absolutely.
Very, very sad. I don't know if they've determined the cause of it yet, but always sad to lose someone. This morning we're going to touch on something we talked about within the last couple of months because it's no secret. Property values are up. Retail construction, personal home construction is way up.
Yeah.
And so is the price of everything. We were talking about how the price of building a home is, I don't remember what number you said, but it's up like 1.5, almost 2 times normal. Sheets of plywood, $60 a piece on the cheap side.
Yeah, and right now it's a supply and demand issue. It really is. As we're trying to, and I'm not going to try to give you a reason as to why, but we all know inflation is real right now. Recovering from COVID, and supply and demand is just rearing its ugly head. And as such, the demand for materials has also gone up, causing all kinds of things to result in a huge increase in material. Huge increase in material, and labor is hard to come by because everyone's so darn busy. So what we're finding is, now is a really important time to consider whether you have enough coverage on your home. It really is. So I'm going to talk specifically to building owners. So whether it's a homeowner's policy, or you're a landlord and you have rental properties, or you're a business owner and you own a business and with the building in which you are in, or rent to other businesses. This is an important conversation for you. Right? So, think about the square footage you have for your building. I used to say that if I was throwing a dart at the dartboard to rebuild a house, you were probably, if you were looking to try to get as close to a bullseye as you can, it was probably $166 a square foot. Most people will tell you that's well over 200, or at least 200 now. So how do you protect yourself? How do you make sure you're okay? There's a couple of really important things. So I'll sidestep over to the homeowner part of it for the first part of this. Homeowners, a bit of good news for you, right? You have what we call, hopefully, and if you don't, make sure you do. Please make sure you do. You should have expanded replacement cost on your home. Now, what is expanded replacement cost? That's basically a set percentage of above and beyond the policy could pay if deemed necessary to rebuild like, kind, and quality to what you have lost as a total loss. So, that's the biggest concern, is it a total loss, right? So if you have a house that you were insuring, let's do simple math this morning because I've only taken like 3 steps of that. So let's say you have a house and your house is insured for $100,000. And for the longest time, that was going to be more than enough to rebuild what you had, right? Well, due to the cost of materials and everything else right now, let's say it's going to cost $125,000. Do you have coverage for that? Well, if you have expanded replacement costs with some companies, you could. Companies have expanded replacement costs that can be 20, 25, 50. I've even seen 100%, where you have a huge backstop behind you to hopefully prevent you from being in a situation where you can't afford to rebuild your house if it's a total loss.
All right, so you just saw me right down over here while you were talking, and it's interesting the way this just led in. All right, so you're talking about a $100,000 home, which now is going to be $125,000, right?
Yeah, or $175,000.
Okay,
yeah.
So let's use that. Now let's go the other way around. Let's say that house costs $175,000 to build today. Okay, 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, a reappraisal's done on the house. Okay, and it comes in at $100,000.
Yeah. So what appraisal are you talking about?
I'm talking about property appraisal, maybe somebody who's going to refi or something like that.
Yep.
Okay, so
I love it. You're leading me into a great thing that I love to tell people.
Well, that's why I wrote this down, because I thought this would be a great question. What happens in the reverse of what you were just talking about?
Perfect setting. So let's set it up this way. I tell everybody, and I think we've talked about this before, but it warrants repeating. Every property essentially has up to 4 values for it. Okay, so you've got your market value. What can you sell it on the market for in the real estate? You get your town assessed value, which can vary from town to town. Their methods and calculations vary greatly. And it's based on comps. You've got the bank appraisal if you're doing a refinance or an original mortgage generation, or origination rather. So that company's going to come in and justify the value to make sure that the bank is giving you the appropriate money and that everything mathematically works out. And then you've got the 4-headed insurance guy. Yes, that's me. who comes in and says, oh, yeah, thanks for those other three values. They have nothing to do what I'm doing, because we are literally only looking at one thing and one thing only, the average cost to rebuild what you have. So stick by stick, brick by brick, what would it take to rebuild? Now, you bring up a great point. There was a long period early on, before I existed in this industry, where inflation guard on a homeowner policy was boosting houses 8 to 10% year over year over year. So there were many people who at that point were overinsured. You know, you can dial it back. I do it all the time. I think it's important. I think it's important to have that conversation, look at the value of your property. If inflation guard over time has brought you to $250,000 and your home, I'm justifiably saying through calculations that I have available to me, which I have plenty, saying, well, the house really could be rebuilt for $175, dial it back. If you're insuring your house for an amount that you will never realize, I don't care if it costs $1 more a year. That's $1 of waste. So, and many of my peers will tell me, oh, that's kind of a scary thing to do. And it is. But I don't want somebody to not realize what they're insuring for. So we try to keep pretty good tabs on values and which way to go. Companies are increasing inflation guard right now. Companies were doing 3, 3, and 4% inflation guard for years. Now, I've been getting announcements from companies that are putting 9 and 10% inflation guards because they're so worried right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, this one here, not very likely to happen, but you talked about all the different assessments of a home's value. Let's say somebody has an existing home, and due to town zoning, okay, let's say that home was in just a residential area, but they put up a school. And that changes the property value. Does that impact the insurance coverage or still just a replacement?
We're still just looking at what it costs to build. We don't care what land it's on. We don't care anything else. What do you have for a footprint? What do you have for quality? What do you have for average of materials? That's what we're looking at. So market value, assessment value has no play here. It's replacement cost value, which is what we're working on.
Okay. Well, and you always mention it's good to have the conversation, so folks want to have it with you.
Yeah. Real quick sidestep. I talked a lot about homeowners, business owners. There's not an expanded replacement cost that I'm aware of available in most business owners' policies. So that would really warrant a conversation just to make sure you're at a comfort level. And you can easily do that with us by calling 748-5224. You can find us on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury, online, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency.
And if you came in halfway through the conversation,
which I did,
your interest, yeah, because you get deeper in your coffee, we'll send us off to Mike so you guys can listen to it again. It is Good Policies. Enjoy the sunshine.
Be well.
And we'll see you in 1 week's time.
Sounds good.
And we go back to music with Rag and Bone Man.